All right, so one of the recent trends that I've seen a lot all over the country lately is that for the most part people used to buy properties in one of two ways. And by properties I mean rental properties or investment properties, not their own home. One of the trends that I see is people used to just pay cash for a rental property, or they would get a mortgage from a bank. Well, as many people are aware, getting a mortgage on your own home is extremely difficult now. All the lending standards have tightened, much less getting a loan on an investment property. So one of the things that I've seen more and more really over the last 3 to 5 years has been the trend to buy properties with a self-directed IRA. And let's talk about that for a minute. Now, most people have heard of an IRA or they've heard of a 401k. But to self-direct an IRA is a little bit different, because for those of you who have a traditional job, when you sign up, you sit down with a benefits person and they take your money and they just say, do you want to be conservative or do you want to be aggressive or somewhere in between? A lot of people leave those jobs and they leave that 401k or that IRA with the job, and it just continues to be managed by that plan manager. Well, what people have been doing is the government allows for you to form a self-directed IRA and use a third party to manage those funds for you, but you as the investor then have the option of directing where those funds are placed. And so because of tightened credit markets, we're seeing a lot of investors lately who set up their self-directed IRA, they roll over the IRA from their old job, set up a self-directed, and then they start buying property. Now, why property? Why not, invest in mutual funds or day trade? Well, because a lot of people have fears about the market, and they're looking back over their returns from 5, 10, 15 years of their funds or their plans that were managed for their jobs, and realizing that they made 2, 3, 4%. And so with the amount of properties available out there and the number of people who are now renting properties because they can't get mortgages anymore, there's a huge opportunity to make high returns by holding a rental property. And we see investors all the time, all over the country, making 8, 10, 12, 14, 16% interest on their IRAs. Now, think about for a minute the concept of deferred tax growth, okay? Because if I were to buy a rental property with cash for $100,000 and I collected $1,000 a month on that, at the end of the year, I'm going to have $12,000 hypothetically in rental income that I made on that property. Well, if my tax rate is 30%, then I have to give $3,600 to the government from that rental income. But if I were to fund $100,000 into my self-directed IRA and buy a house and collected that same $12,000, then I wouldn't have to write a check at the end of the year for that $3,600. Okay? That money would stay in there and it would grow tax deferred, because I don't start paying taxes on that money until it starts coming out. And so think about over time, maybe with one property it's not going to be as big of an impact, but think about over 3, 5, 10 years as you continue to add properties to that self-directed IRA and you continue to retain that rental income, or you flip the properties and you don't have to pay the capital gains tax on those. Think of the power of how that can compound and how that can grow and that can build your wealth. And so while a lot of people understand that they don't pay taxes on their IRA when it's with their job, they're not thinking about the power of what that can mean when you start adding in rental income and you're not paying taxes and taking 2 steps forwards and 1 step back every year. And so that's really why people are moving towards this trend, because number 1, they want to get out of the market. Number 2, they want to control their own money. Number 3, it's nice to own something real estate. And number 4, their money's able to grow tax deferred. And when you combine those 4 things together, you're really looking at a phenomenal wealth building tool. And that's why the trend has moved away from maybe financing properties as much with banks, income properties, and more towards rolling over a self-directed IRA, setting that up, and then using that to invest.